It's a simple question. Who wins Game 6?
I got the Clippers winning. And I admit, I went away from my original prediction. My prediction going into the series was Phoenix in 7. I'm feeling really good about that pick right now.
Okay.
But I deviated from it yesterday, and I said Phoenix would close them out in 5. Obviously, I was wrong about that. But I think Monty Williams hit it on the head when he used the word desperation. These teams are incredibly evenly matched. Now, obviously, if you have Kawhi there, the Clippers have the advantage. But without him, I think they're very similar and close to each other as far as ability. And so when that is the case, desperation is oftentimes the difference. So in games 1 and 2, Phoenix is without Chris Paul, their inspirational leader, right? They're desperate because they know we're playing without him. They win the first 2 games. Game 3, obviously, the Clippers are desperate because you can't go down 3-0. They win that game. And then game 5 last night, the Clippers are desperate again because their backs are against the wall. So they win that game. Game 6, the Clippers still are more desperate. Now, I know Phoenix is going to tell itself we got to play with desperation and all that. But these young guys, Ayton and Booker, first time in the playoffs, and I know they've been good, but they really haven't faced that much adversity. First series, LeBron's playing on a bad ankle. Anthony Davis is injured. Second series, there's no Jamal Murray in Denver. And so that's where they haven't had to face the adversity that they're facing now. So in their first playoff series or season, will those guys be able to muster up the desperation when their backs aren't really against the wall? We always hear players say the closeout game is the toughest game to win. And it's because of the desperation. So I don't know that the young guys can muster that up when it's not really there yet. Game 7, I think it'll be there and they'll be fine. But I expect Paul George to come out with another strong game. And Reggie Jackson, I'm feeling now like I can really count on Reggie. Like I kind of feel like he's probably the reliable guy on the Clippers. Yep. Now, he's not going to give me 30-something like Paul George can do, but I can count on him to give me a good 20, hit a few big threes. So I think the Clippers playing with desperation even this thing up at 3 games apiece.
But I disagree because I think the pressure, because we did what we wanted to do. In order for us to get back to home, we had to win Game 5. Now that you're back home, everybody expects us to win Game 6, Chris, because we're in our building. We're going to be playing in front of 16,000. I guess they'll have a capacity crowd at Staples Center. And so for me, I'm looking at it like, okay, Suns, you approached this game like it was a regular season game. You just thought, oh, we in Phoenix, and our crowd is going to be electric, and we're just going to show up, and everything's going to be okay. You forgot who you're playing against. Chris Paul, you said it after the game. That team just don't quit. That team has a lot of fight. Did you forget the words that you uttered on Saturday? Because it seems like you did, because you guys sleptwalked the first quarter and you gave up 36 points. Now, I don't believe that Marcus Smart is going to play that well again in the first quarter. I don't believe they're going to play that well again. I don't believe they can get the 36 points again in the first quarter. If they do, they'll probably win. Chris Paul and Devin Booker are due for games in which they shoot better than 40% from the field because they haven't shot the ball particularly well. Chris Paul is 19 of 60, and they've lost 2 of the 3 games. Skip, we pulled a stat. My research, she's on it. Ash is on it. Boogie Cousins played in 14 playoff games. Did you know 15 points was his career high? You believe he's going to replicate that again? He's going to get another career high? I don't believe that.
You don't?
I don't believe that.
So
I'm feeling good about that. I felt so good about it, Chris. I put 3 cases. But here's the elephant in the room. The Suns are not a better team without Chris Paul. But their 15 points higher offensive rating with him off the court is when him on the court. And you mentioned when he was out, you look how they push the pace. Look at him when he's on the court. They slow the pace down. He's allowing the Clippers to set their defense. Push that ball. Get that ball in transition. And let D.A. eat. D.A., issue a subpoena. Chris Paul, give me the you-know-what ball. Payne, give me the ball. They can't see me down here on this block.
He's starting to be a pain in your,
What Cameron Johnson needs to start too, because he can play defense just as bad as Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges, but he's going to give you more offensively.
I would agree with that.
Cameron Johnson needs to get by 20, 25 minutes and watch it.
So, Shannon Sharpe and Chris Broussard, there's an even bigger elephant in the room that, I don't know, silly me, I'm noticing that you two aren't.
What?
I think even without Kawhi Leonard and without Zubats and without even Serge Ibaka, I just think the Clippers are still a little better than the Suns, and they keep proving it game after game after game. Scoring differential so far through the 5 games, the Clippers are plus 17 through the 5 games over the Phoenix Suns.
Right.
So when they win much more convincingly than the Suns do, and when they lose, the Clippers, they don't lose by much. Haven't been blown out one time in this whole playoff run. And they are now up to a record 7 games that they have won when trailing in playoff series. No one's ever done that before. So to me, it's not about pressure, because the truth is the pressure is still on the Phoenix Suns. The truth is the greatest pressure is not on Paul George. It's on Chris Paul III, because he's never been to a finals in his career, and we're getting toward the end of his career. And wait a second, he's blown a couple of 3-1 leads already. So now the specter of another blown 3-1 lead has got to start eating at him. And he is now, over his last 2 games, 0 for 9 from 3. 2 for 16 in the 3 games he has played in this series from 3.
Right.
So I'm looking at it like the Clippers have to be feeling a little better about themselves and their plight, because they love this plight. This is all they've ever done. Nobody had ever come back from 0-2 down in consecutive playoff series. They already did that. So what's 3-1 down to them? They are at their best when they're at their worst. And they are obviously up against it now, Game 5, Game 6, and Game 7. But I don't think they feel any pressure. The pressure was on the Clippers only once in the series, and it was Game 4 at home, because if you want to do it conventionally, you need to even the series at 2-all. And once they didn't do that, it's like, well, here we go again. And Ty Lue said, yeah, it's very doable. And I think they bought it because they know they are a little better than the Phoenix Suns.
Well, that's what the Phoenix Suns need to do. They need to get them to the 4th quarter and let it be a back-and-forth ball game. You look at the 2 ball games that they won, the games weren't close in the 4th quarter. Yeah, I mean, Chris Paul gave them a lead in the 3rd, but then they took off and didn't look back. Get them to the 4th quarter.
Well, they got it to 98-94 last night.
No. I wanted it to be a bucket. I make what I go ahead. You make a bucket, you go ahead. I wanted to go tit for tat. Okay,
but it looked like it was going to be tit for tat in the 3rd quarter when they suddenly jump up 62-61. You want to talk about a short-lived lead? That 1-point lead lasted seconds, and then that was it for the rest of the night.
You talking real big and
I'm
bold
feeling good because I'm even looking at points in the paint last night.
Yeah, Chris crushed us.
58-32.
That was the first time all series.
What?
It can't happen.
And where was the dominator, as they called DeAndre?
God, it wasn't beating him the ball. You know where he was.
Well, I don't know. He was guarded by Marcus Morris and Batum.
Oh, you calling him out? Say it. Call him out.
I'm not calling him out. I'm just stating a fact.
That's what I thought.
I don't know where he was. But I didn't know where he was a couple of times against the Lakers.
Okay.
What happened?
Watch he issue that subpoena to Chris Paul.
Really?
Why Chris Paul feed it?
Okay. Well,
why would I tell you?
You don't even want Chris Paul in the game. You want him to be replaced.
I want him to push the ball. That's what I need him to do. I need him to push the ball.
Shannon Sharpe is campaigning to replace Chris Paul in the starting lineup. No, I didn't. Said this man.
I said Cam Johnson should be in the starting lineup.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
It's an interesting thing. I mean, you hit it on the head, Skip. The pressure is on Chris Paul. I mean, he's gotten a ton of praise, well-deserved this year. Some thought he was the MVP because what he did with Phoenix. But they go ahead and win the first 2 games without him. And now, as you said, they've lost
two or three
now
with
it's
him.
3-2. They've lost 2 of 3 with him. Here's a stat for you, Shannon, that you mentioned, I think, Ayton.
Yeah.
Devin Booker, with Chris Paul on the court in this series, he's averaging 18 points per 36 minutes on 33% shooting, 29% from 3. Without Chris Paul, 27 points per 36 minutes, 43% shooting, 36% shooting from three.
Uh-oh.
So Chris is not going to push it. Chris is a slow player. He might be being too deliberate and controlling everything a little too much.
Yes.
For these young guys. I mean, I think he's got to get out. You're right, he's got to play faster, but I don't know if that's in him.
Well, they need to get in.
Just like I've talked about how him getting to the finals or winning the championship would be a huge boost for his legacy, if they somehow lose this series, it's really going to be a knock against him.
Oh, and he got several knocks because he has Skip. He has those 3-1 wins. Remember in L.A., and they lost on their home court by 19.
They did.
So he gonna have to come through. He gonna have to come through. But they got them young legs. Bridges and Crowder's not that young, but Bridges and Booker and Ayton and Cam Payne and Cam Johnson and Craig, they need to run. Let them run. You saw what they did when they didn't have Chris Paul. Cam Payne was pushing it. Push it.
He was. I mean,
like Salt Pepper, push it real good.
He was unguardable. Paul George couldn't guard him.
We got something for you. We're gonna push it. We're gonna push the tempo on you. Yep.
You're going to push it?
I got the Clippers in Game 6, just as I had the Clippers in Game 5.
We got 3 cases on it.
Well, you were onto something there, Skip.
We got 3 cases on it.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.